The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Coming to your cordless. It's Wednesday night, March 12th, 2025. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 a.m. in Singapore, 12 noon in Sydney, Australia, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 8 p.m. Central Time. I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. I think I didn't bother to check. I think this is number 206, if I'm correct. Episode, if you're keeping score at home, and I might be wrong, and then the whole world will blow up. Who knows? Okay, so we got it going on. It's like we're not young anymore, but we still got it going on. No, I don't know what I'm talking about. Our guest tonight is Tim Conaway. He's the former executive editor of Hustler magazine. He edited Hustler magazine for about 15 years in the 80s and 90s at the height of its popularity. He also does a very, very mean Larry Flint impression too. Maybe we'll ask him to do that at the end. He's a guest. Tomorrow night, we're starting a really interesting thing here. Okay, so last Friday, Lee Richardson, the founder of the Brain Performance Center in Dallas and psychologist extraordinaire, she was our guest, and it's the second time she's been on the show in about 9 months. Wonderful conversationalist. Love to have her on. Anyway, so she pitches to me this idea. She has a book coming out. The book is called, hold on just a second. I got it down here so I don't have to screw this up. It's called Crisis Brains, Unlocking Brain Capital for Smarter Decisions. The book is aimed at decision makers, people in leadership or wherever, if you're making decisions for your Boy Scout group or whatever you got going on, and how they can do that and why decisions sometimes turn out bad from a neurological point of view. It's a fascinating subject. Anyway, she says, Jim, I got this book coming out. Would you like to do a series of interviews about this? And I jumped because I don't know if you know this. Finding guests for a show is really, really hard. It's the biggest. It takes so much more time than actually doing this. I suppose I could do a stupid podcast where I got together with two friends for drinks last night at a bar, and we could probably just ramble on like idiots for 3 hours and post it once a week. And we got it going on. Oh well, no, I'm trying to talk to interesting people, and this is interesting subject. So she's going to come on tomorrow night for the first appearance of 3 Thursday appearances, and we're going to talk about this. We actually sent a press release out on this today. Unbelievable. So so I'm looking forward to seeing her. Monday, our old friend Don Zorro is back here, and we're going to talk about the politics and conservative things. That's what he does. That's his thing. Intelligence operative and lover of women, I like to call him. And we can't talk about what he does. Seriously, we just can't. So he actually appears in disguise on the program, and okay, fine, I'm okay with that. He's so damn interesting, it doesn't matter. So, at any rate, that's our show tonight. Tonight, Tim Conaway. Now we're going to be taking your phone calls. And it occurred to me, I got a text from somebody about a half an hour ago. Are you going live tonight? Yes, we are. And I texted back and said, we're taking phone calls after the interview, but there's no reason. Tim's here live. You can call if you have questions for Tim. You can call up and talk to him. Matter of fact, if you have questions on. He's gonna hate me for this. If you have questions on how they put together the beaver hunt, at Hustler, I'm sure he can answer your questions on that. Yeah, he hates me now. All right, so we're gonna hear from Calling News for just a second here, and we'll join with Jim. Stay tuned, please. Hi, all. I want to talk to you about Conk News. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but if you're a news junkie, you should try this out. Conk News is a news aggregator. Now, there are plenty of news aggregators on the web, but Conk News is different than all the rest, and here's how. Most other news aggregators will lump the top stories from each news source under that news source. The top 10 stories, like, for example, from Fox News, Breitbart, the New York Post, etc. What Conk News does is it sends its servers out onto the web to over 75 different news sources every 3 hours. And yes, this is an automated process, but in this case, that's actually a good thing. And collects the latest stories from said 75 sources and then lays them out on its own front page in the order they were posted, regardless of the source. So you see the latest stories at the top of the front page, regardless of where they're from. And this is all free to you. You don't need to log in. You don't need to subscribe, register, nothing. It's completely free. All you have to do is go to conk.com to check it out. That's conk.com, 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 Conk News. Yay, you're here.
Yeah, I am here.
Did you hear my introduction?
Yes, thank you for setting that up for me.
Yeah, I know.
Well.
People get to call in. It's great. It's fantastic. I got a new call-in number, 325-CALL-JIM. I got that, believe it or not.
Yeah, I can see it on the screen there.
Yeah, it's on the screen there, 325-225-5546. You want to call up and talk to Tim or me, but I'm not that interesting. Tim is. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I had a nice lunch today and chat with an old friend, so it's always very nice.
It's nice to have friends, isn't it?
Well, yeah, some.
Yeah. You know, I was telling you earlier that Lee Richardson came on last week, and one of the reasons she came on is I read this thing in the press that says 60% of all men, American men, don't have a single friend. I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that.
Yeah, well, I wonder, is it the younger 60% or the older 60%?
What would be your guess?
I don't know. It might be split between the two. I mean, older guys, life takes you different places and stuff, and the people you're friends with, you may be just too far away to keep it going on, or you just kind of slow down in your interest and activities. Young guys all seem to be, in love with their phone, and so,
Yeah.
I think young people don't make any friends. They text people, and they're in chat groups with people or something, but I don't think they meet in person ever.
Hey, Tim, and you kind of dealt with in the romance business in a way for a while.
Yeah.
I got a friend of mine. He's about 70, and his wife passed away recently, and he's started dating again. So he went on the online dating sites, and the ones specifically for older people. And the thing that he found amazing, this didn't surprise me. He's not really online much, but he found that there was a lot of people. He met a lot of women that kind of quote unquote wanted a relationship, but they only wanted an online relationship. They didn't actually want to get together in person. It's like, and I just like, I'm sorry, what's the point? I don't know. And that's what he thinks too.
Yeah, well, again, I don't know. That sounds to me like
bullshit.
It sounds like you just want to talk to somebody, but
right?
You don't want to have any kind of other involvement, and that's what your other women friends are for. I mean,
okay, yeah.
There should be like a match site for women who don't have any other women to talk to, and they can do that, because I don't see guys being, I want to get online and I want to hear every detail of every conversation that somebody had during the day or whatever.
Yeah.
not my idea of fun.
I have to give my mother credit. Speaking of you're talking about whether it's the older people, the younger guys who don't know. My mother, now, of course, she's a female, of course, but my mother's 100. And so around 20 years ago, this is like 19, around when she was 80, basically all her friends started to die off. So my mother, God bless her, she took the horn by the reins and she went out and found a bunch of new friends. It's like that's not, I gotta say, that's not easy, especially when you're older, you know?
Oh yeah. But there are ways to do it. There are groups and organizations and stuff where you can take that on, and more because there are more people in the 55 to whatever age. 100 is the rare end, top end of that, but more, there's like 1/3 of people in society are over the age of 55, and 28% or something are over the age of 65. So there are lots of organizations now that have different kinds of ways of getting people together like that. And there are lots of civic-based things, senior programs as they're called mainly, but programs for older adults where they get together, and if they're playing cards or Scrabble or
Eating.
eating, sending cards to people. There are lots of ways like that to get these people together, and it's a good, healthy thing to be communicating that way.
Yeah, well, that's the point. People shouldn't be. I don't know. I just don't think people should be alone. But it's like that's me. So we were talking earlier. You said you had a little thing in your butt about talking about the bureaucracy, and this is really an important thing because everybody deals with it more or less on some level. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is you ran newsrooms and stuff. You've done all this stuff, right? It's big staffs. At what point? This is kind of a rhetorical question because I guess the Greeks kind of answered this. I don't know if you know the background of this, but at what point does an organization become a bureaucracy?
Oh well, yeah, it's. My flip answer is when the accountants get promoted to be the top people.
Well, yeah,
but,
okay.
that's one thing, but that's just a symptom of it. When it's really when the people in charge are more worried about getting blamed for something or losing their job to somebody coming up the ladder than they are about getting the job itself taken care of. And I've had the fortunes or misfortunes to work for several places, and in a place where the people at the top can add up all the numbers, and of course they also take credit for the profits and the sales and the numbers and stuff, but where they don't really understand the product, how the product is made, they don't really understand how the product is sold. They're worried about the shareholders, and when these companies get really big and so they're not private anymore, but this happens at private companies as well. Then there's this atmosphere of, if anything goes wrong, even the smallest thing, it's why did this happen and who do we blame, and a lot of that kind of stuff. And there's an old Japanese proverb that says, "Fix the problem, not the blame." That's the proper way to go about it. If something goes wrong, figure out what happened, you fix the problem, and you go on. But to fix the problem, you have to know how things work. And if you don't know how things work and some junior member of the organization, you have to have them tell you that makes you look weak or look bad or look, not knowledgeable. So in organizations like that, people who are any good are feared because they actually know things and they actually know how to get things done. Instead of being rewarded for it, there's this skepticism, and and also in those kind of companies, there's this kind of layer of junior management that grows. It's a buffer between, the people higher up and the people where the work is getting done. It's this kind of buffer so that the people at the top are a step away from whatever problem comes up.
Do you
And
think, I gotta stop you for a second. Do you think that layer of middle management, for lack of a better term, is that their actual, sometimes I think that's their primary reason for being?
well, it's their only reason. That's their only reason for being there. They're the buffer between this. They're not actually doing anything. They're supposed to be managing segments, of the operation, but they're not actually producing anything. They're not selling. They're in charge of the sales. They're not uh, uh, operating. They're not making stuff. They're not providing the service. They're in charge of the people providing the service. But you've got this layer of people at the top. So you get too many people in these layers. In companies where really good people aren't appreciated, uh, and their views aren't respected, and the company doesn't take advantage of that, the good people leave. You don't have to put up with that, so you go someplace else. So that leaves you with these average or below average kind of people, and they're the ones who ascend into these middle management spots simply because they're there. It's just a matter of durability under the circumstances. And they're not good at getting things done. They don't know how to get things done. They don't want to get blamed for things. Uh, so, uh, you know, the people under them are given a certain amount of responsibility, but very little authority to carry it out because they don't want to give up any of their authority. And so the people who are in those situations are like, well, I've got a very limited thing here of what I can do, what I can get done. So I'm going to stick with that. And that's, to me, in my experiences in private companies, and I've worked in small companies. I've worked in companies that are what are considered the medium-sized companies, of 500 or more to 1,000 employees, and I've worked in some bigger companies where it's beyond that, and so it's not, it comes from the top down, and it's stultifying instead of lifting everybody up, and these are the people who know all the business speak, which is specious. It has no merit in terms of getting things done.
It drives you crazy.
Yeah, it's a runaround, and so you go to the government now. Well, like nobody in government, I won't say nobody. There are probably some people in government who are really interested in the field that they're in and what they want to do, but it's that same thing where you've just got layers and layers and layers of people who are not expected to shine and not expected to accomplish a lot. And if you do accomplish a lot and you're surrounded by these, let's call them, grade C, your average people, grade C and grade D people, then, you get peer pressure not to perform up to a certain level. And, you don't get rewarded for what you do. And sometimes, you become the target of these people who are are really afraid that, oh, he's going to take my job, or she's going to, move up and do this, or they're going to, this person could cause things to change, and if things change, then I'm really out of the circuit. So that's my take on why there's so much of this, just people doing nothing. Very few people, in my experience, very few people, if you're not on some kind of production line, or you're not given a schedule and held to it, are actually working all day long. I talk about the 8-hour workday. Well, that's a factory thing.
Right.
And it doesn't really apply in the service industry. If you're good at what you do, you could go in on a service job and you could maybe work 5 hours and accomplish everything that needs to be accomplished in the day. But everybody's measured on, you get there exactly at 9 o'clock. If you get there at 9:05, then there's something wrong with you. Even though you might stay half an hour late at the end of the day. But it's those kind of, we measure them on when they come in the door, what time they come in the door, rather than how much work they get done.
My accountant tells me, she says that all the people working at the IRS, all the IRA, she says, you have to understand, Jim, they're all failed accountants.
Yeah.
If you can't get a CPA's license, you end up working for the IRS. So it's like, you're talking about a grade C employee. And there you go, Yeah.
And, it's full of that. And, government is full of that kind of thing. There are some people who get jobs with the government in certain areas, and they're interested about what they want to do. They've got some kind of enthusiasm, but they've got to slog through all this other kind of stuff. And in corporations, like I said, I've experienced it. You go into some places and it's like, oh, you've got ideas and you want to change, you want to make improvements, you want to do things. That's really good. We'll do that. We'll put that into effect. Other places you want to do that, and it's like, oh, no, we're never going to do that. So,
because we can't change. That would be terrible.
Well, yeah, you can't change. And then all of a sudden you find that, oh, well, you've fallen behind the other people in your field, and you're cutting back and you're closing the doors.
Well, so in the conversations you and I have had privately, I'm summing this up in like 2 sentences. So this is where I want you to set me straight. I'm under the impression that for all his quirks and eccentricities, you said Larry Flynt was actually a pretty good boss. Am I right about that?
Yeah, well, Flynt was good about telling you what his expectations were. And he definitely wasn't a micromanager. He would say, it's my job to have ideas and it's your job to make them happen. And, so he would tell us what he wanted, and then we would come up with something and we would present it to him. And if it was okay, he would like it. And if it wasn't okay, he'd say, no, that's shit. And, and then we'd come back with something else.
Were the ideas generally good?
Well, yeah. And, when I was with it, we had good creative teams. It wasn't one person. People got together and threw ideas out there, and people weren't afraid to throw ideas out there. And if their idea didn't pick up or take off or whatever, they didn't take it personally. It was just, we were trying to get something to work. So it was always, a group effort. Now, once we came up with, here's the way we want to go, one person would take it on and create the writing or the illustration or the photography or whatever it was. But to get to that point where we had something to work with, that was going to be approved by Larry, that was always a group effort. And that's the other thing about, in the business world, they talk about people being in silos and stuff. My job is just this kind of stuff. And, don't come in here and tell me something, you're in some other kind of area. And I'm not ever going to come over and help you guys out with anything. I've got my little space here, and that's all I'm dealing with.
So if I'm the timeline's a little murky for me. You actually started working for him before he moved to Los Angeles, right?
Yeah, I worked for him from like 75, early in 75 to around late in 77. And then I was gone. I was at other publications for a few years, and then I came back in 85, and I was there from 85 to 95. So
yeah.
It was like two different eras of.
And he was in Columbus, Ohio when you started, right?
Right. Yeah. He started out.
Was Hustler actually running then? Was as a magazine?
Yeah, it had been out. He started it in 74, and it was either late 74 or early 75. I think it was late 74 when he came out with the Jackie Onassis nude photo issue.
Yeah, and that kind of put him on the map, right?
Right. Yeah, we got all kinds of attention, and a lot of it was negative, except
all publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, he would say that all publicity is good. There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Right.
Plus, when the media and chastising him spreads the word that he's got naked pictures of a former first lady, everybody wants to see that.
Yeah, right. So that's a terrible thing. Show them to me.
Yeah. So it was that was an issue pretty much sold out, which is very rare in the adult magazine business, that an issue sells more. Most magazines that go directly to the newsstand don't have a big subscriber base. Well, if they sell 1/3 of the copies that are printed, that's a successful month. So yeah, that one really sold out. I put him on, and that's why I interviewed him. Because he was from the part of Kentucky that I covered for a newspaper down there, and so I hadn't heard of this, and but the executive editor of the paper said, "Well, this guy's from Elliott County. You should do a story on him." And so I talked to him, and it was a really interesting conversation. And then they wouldn't run the story that I wrote about him. And so I, called him up to tell him what happened and apologize for taking his time. And he offered me a job. So I just said, hell yeah. Because we talked for a long time, and 10 minutes of it was about porn, and about another 2 hours was about advertising influence on the media and the hypocrisy of politicians and preachers, and I was just blown away by what he was talking about, because that and my idea of getting up in the face of society at that time, that's what journalists were supposed to do. We were supposed to cover that kind of stuff, not sugarcoat everything. So
Tim, what the hell happened? I mean, you're talking about you're right. That was the job of journalism 50 years ago. Now, first of all, legacy media is literally, I mean, I'm not just saying this as a conservative person. It literally seems to be collapsing in terms of sales and advertising revenue and all that sort of stuff. And not only that, we seem to have a whole generation of journalists who are basically like liberal advocates. No one seems to be interested in printing the truth. Well, relatively speaking. I mean, once again, I'm making a generalization, and of course, that's not completely true. But like what happened to this whole thing?
Well, it's the commercialism, and it's something that Flint talked about, was the influence of advertisers on the media, but there's also the influence of the owners. And it's not just the owner's attitude, but when you're talking large scale, like national networks and the really big newspapers that still exist, the publishers and the ad executives, are dealing with the advertisers, and the ad people are, again, the ones who bring in the money. The people who put the newspaper together, the journalists are they're just using up money.
Yeah.
And then the publishers, they're having dinner with the big shots out in the world. They're playing golf with the big shots. They're in that level of society. And so those influences play a key role in what's going on. So, it depends on who's out there. And then, there's the idea that being on this side or the other, being, this blatantly on this side or the other, is what sells your paper. It reaches that audience that you want, or it sells your. Now, the business end of the visual media, television and cable and that kind of stuff. It's also an entertainment thing, and this is what your audience wants. They want to hear certain things, and they want to tune in certain things. So that slant is part of what they think is their the business model that they have to have. Good journalists aren't appreciated in that, because good journalists will go out and get the story, and if it upsets the advertisers, if it exposes some of these companies for being bad, or if it takes on the political side that the paper is shown that they're backing, then you're going to be told your story is no good, and if you stay at the paper, you're going to get less and less good assignments. You're going to get covering the actual shit stuff, and you'll be sent to to cover the debutante society or something like that. So those people get out, and that's why there are like 15,000 podcasts, because a lot of those people are trying to do the news that way and get it out, but you don't have the platform that the mainstream places have.
Yeah, the podcast thing, I mean, it's a level playing field, but so unless you're like already well known, it's kind of hard to break in.
Yeah, and if you're doing good journalism, how do you reach an audience of people who want good journalism? Most people are happy to be told what to think, or this is the way things are, and they're going to go along with it. They bought into it, and so they can't change, or they can't challenge any of these ideas. So they're happy to receive their stuff. I think the other problem with the mainstream news, particularly television news, is that it's a model that's like 60, going on 70 years old.
Yeah.
And, so right now Fox is doing well, but, they're catering to Trump, and a lot of people are following Trump and following what's going on in that world.
Also, you forgive me for being cynical here, but Roger Ailes, regardless of his personal and private stuff, I mean, I think the guy was a genius, but it isn't really hard. Let's find a bunch of hot chicks and put them on TV.
Yeah, well, that was a way it got people watching, for sure. But they ranked second. We've talked January and February.
Yeah.
They were second in the ratings, but they were behind NBC, and I don't understand that. Lester Holt is maybe it's because he's such a calm and serene guy. You feel like you're getting the square deal from him, but I don't. CBS News recently changed their format, and I was hoping, and it said that they were going to do more with uh, with their affiliates or their reach out in the world, but they didn't really do it in a way that I think is going to get people to watch more of it. And so,
Well, first of all, I'm curious, how would you do it? Because first of all, you're right. They've retreated from this. They've already determined it failed, but you have a point in the sense that you have this network of hundreds of stations that are producing stories every single day. If why not just like collect all those and put them on TV? It's like, but then you basically don't need a main staff in your headquarters like at all. And why did this fail? You'd think at the very least it would be economically viable, if maybe not interesting, but still.
well, it's the reason this one failed is they made it into a kind of a magazine news show, sort of like 60 Minutes, although not as in depth in the stories, instead of news. And that's the other thing we've talked about this offline, but when they do something that's, from the White House, they've got a guy standing there with the White House behind him, and he's telling you something that happened 4 hours ago or something in the White House. Not very exciting. And maybe it's not very important even. It's just that's what people are talking about. If you've got 350 affiliates, which is what CBS has, you've got all kinds of stories happening. And some of them are maybe only interesting on the local level. But some of the things that are happening locally kind of apply across the nation. Maybe that's happening in Cleveland, but it applies in cities of that size and with the same considerations. You've got things happening in agriculture in a certain region that can come up. And, you still have to have some national news on there. But to me, there would be no announcer, the CBS News with Nora O'Donnell. I know you like to see what she was wearing that evening, but
I'll look at her.
but you don't need anybody doing that.
No, you don't.
And in terms of the structure, in terms of the staff back there, what you need is one news director who's got people under him who are taking each region of the country and their affiliates in those areas, and they've got a group of people, and they're looking at what's being done on those news channels, and they're coming up saying, this would be a good story for us to have on tonight. And then, they bring that up to the top guy, and the top guy makes decisions and puts it on. And you just go from one story to the next story. You don't need somebody saying, now we're going to go to Washington and talk to so-and-so, or now we're going to go to Wichita, Kansas and talk to so-and-so.
Right.
Just go to Wichita, Kansas and talk to them. Right. And then at the end of it, that person doesn't have to say, thank you, Melvin, for your, because why do we have to thank Melvin? He's getting paid to do this. But that takes time. You've only got so much time on these TV shows, and saying 3 or 4 words 10 times during an episode, that takes you could do a little news bit there.
Yeah, you only have 22 minutes.
Right, yeah, because and if you did this way, I think you could do a full hour and it would be entertaining. It would be one thing right after another. Al Shuttlecotty on the Channel 9 in Cincinnati used to do these things where it was just bang, 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 and they were all things happening around there. And one might be a traffic accident, one might be the police arrested somebody, and one might be, they announced layoffs at this kind of place. But he had about 10 minutes of his news segment that was just boom, 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 boom. Here's a story. And, Al wasn't really saying anything. And the other, unless this was news footage that they brought in, and Al was explaining in the background what happened, but you didn't have reporters standing between the camera and the actual news.
Yeah.
You know, the camera people should be out there, and the news people, they should give them cameras. I mean, you can do it with your telephone these days, your cell phone. Go out there and get show the actual news story. Don't stand in front of between me and a building where nothing's going on in the building. Get some footage of what's going on. You know, get some footage of talking to the cops instead of saying police are saying this. You know, have the cop actually saying it on the thing, and it could be very, very dynamic and not bogged down at all. But they're, you know, all they know is what they've done, and the people in charge at the networks are no better than these C-average people we were talking about anyplace else.
Yeah.
They've risen up through the ranks because they've kissed ass about, you know, what political slant to put on it. They probably don't have any personal interest in any of this kind of stuff. You know, they've been in the marketing department. Some of these people have more connections to the marketing department than they do to the actual news gathering department. So, you know, they're afraid to try anything. Plus, setting it up and getting it running would be a big undertaking at the beginning. But after a month, I don't think it would take any more than a month to get it running if you put the right people in those spots where you're gathering this stuff up.
Do you ever think about like CNN? I mean, their ratings are so bad. I mean,
Yeah.
completely in the toilet. And, you know, and I'm not the only person who brought this up. It's like, well, you're trying to fix the airplane in midair. And the thing is, and it's like they can't get away from the people they've hired on the air for years. It's like they keep recycling these people. And what I mean, I don't know if this probably isn't possible, but you know, really seriously, shut the whole thing down for a week and start over. I mean, you know, you couldn't do it. I understand that because the shareholders would go nuts because there's no revenues coming in at all. But I mean, seriously, how are you? I don't think this is fixable at this point.
Yeah, well, like you say, that, you know, no revenue coming in for a week is something that everybody's going to jump back from, but no revenue coming in ever.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, is you gotta look at it like that. It's like we got to do something really difficult, really hard right now, and I don't think you have to shut it down, but you'd make changes in the background. But again, getting rid of the talking heads. That's, to me, is the biggest reason I don't watch cable news, is they've got these people on for an entire hour talking about shit. They don't know much about it. They probably didn't write the copy on it. There are a few, you know, good people on some of these channels, but you know, they're not doing news. And that was the thing when CNN came on. They were doing news.
Yeah.
They were trying to do news from around the country.
Right.
And then it got more into talking heads, till that became the status quo for them. And, you know, there probably is a 1 hour segment somewhere in the day where they actually do news. I don't know, because I don't watch any of these things anymore. But it used to be, that was, you know, they spun off the headline news network.
Yeah, they did.
So that they could devote their news network to talking heads all day.
Yeah.
And you know, people rehashing or speculating or, you know, whatever. But again, you got a bunch of heads. You've got no actual news footage, no actual newsmakers, the actual newsmakers talking. You've just got, you know, people being paid exorbitant sums of money to sit in front of a camera and read a teleprompter.
And it's hard to explain. I mean, I think about this a lot. How the difference? How do you discern the difference between a good talking head and a mediocre one? It's like kind of like porn. It's like, you know it when you see it. You know, I don't really understand the. I mean, because some people are better at it than others. You know, there's no doubt about that. But I try to sit down and try to figure out why. I can't really do it.
Yeah, well, to me, the talking heads I would never give them more than a half an hour, and it would be later in in the evening, later at night. Um, they've got to be able to bring something more to it than just talking about, just rehashing what everybody else is talking about, or just speculating on something. They've got to do, they or their writers have to do some research and have to get some real information and have to put some real information out there. And, the people who can do that, again, it's not, there are not a lot of them. I try to picture the people in the writing room, in the newsroom. No, I don't want to picture them naked, because I've worked with somebody back in the day, but I try to picture, what in the hell are they up against? What is being asked of them? What are they being asked to produce that, they think they're in the news business, and then they're doing this other stuff, this specious gab, and I just wonder, are there people in the newsrooms anymore? I mean, are there any writers for these shows? Sometimes, if I'm spinning around the dial and I get, one of these shows at the end of the show, and I might look at the credits, and they got some people who are writing for the thing, but I can't imagine that they're actually there to do news writing. And that's the problem. The news it's out there all the time. There is news happening 24 hours a day, but you have to have people out in the world covering it. And, you can't sit in New York or Washington or Los Angeles and have some people in a room and write up something that's newsworthy.
Yeah. But you can stand in front of a camera and, if you look really good, and I'm not going to go there. You can do that. Yeah. Hey, I think I'm going to let you go. Okay.
All right. Enjoy talking.
Always a pleasure.
It's always fun. And I managed to keep Ladarius Quarles from coming on, because, he's from Cincinnati, and he's always complaining. Cincinnati, so they call it the Queen City. And he said it's got nothing to do with a bunch of turd packers walking around in dresses, even though they got junk in their trunk. It's just has something to do with Rome and the Seven Hills. So,
oh my God!
So I spared you from Ladarius coming on and talking.
We just got a travelogue there. That's pretty interesting. We went from Cincinnati to Italy. Okay. Hey, thanks, man. Always interested. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, glad to chime in, and we'll talk to you again.
We'll talk to you soon. You take care.
All right. Bye now.
Hi all, Jim Peters again for Conk News. Let me tell you one of the greatest things about Conk News. It's free. It's completely and totally free. You don't need to register. You don't need to log in, subscribe, none of that stuff. Sure, they run a few ads on the front page, but if you're an old fogey like me, you might actually appreciate this, because when you check out Conk News at conk.com, you'll probably notice that it's the closest thing to an old-fashioned hard copy newspaper that you'll find online. The latest up-to-the-minute news from 75 high-quality sources collected every 3 hours, all laid out with photos and headlines directly from the articles. And when you click on a story, you go directly to that story. No ad page, no interstitial page, none of that stuff. This is the way online news is meant to be. And did I mention that it's completely free? Seriously, how much of stuff in America is free now, right? That's of quality anyway. So check this out for yourself. It's at conk.com, CONK.com. Conk News. Thanks for Tim Conaway for joining us. Always got something interesting going on there in his little brain. Big brain. What am I talking about? Guy's had a fascinating life too. Man, he's done a lot of stuff. Worked for a lot of places, done a lot of different people. Yeah, done a lot of people, done a lot of different people. Yeah, sure. Okay. All right. Yeah. You can call in 325-225-5546. You can send me a text message 408-458-5088. So this is what I've got going on now, part two. There's a possibility. I find this kind of interesting, which is the reason I'm talking about it. That Joe Biden literally didn't have a clue at all what was going on in the White House. I mean, I've given, people say, well, Donald Trump lies, la da 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 da. And I always said, well, most of what people call his lies are just basically salesmen and exaggerations. But Joe Biden told very substantial, very direct lies. Biggest one, when I came to office, inflation was at 9.4%. That's completely untrue. It was at 1.4%. I mean, he said that over and over again. And then I'm thinking, is he just trying to pull the wool? Is he gaslighting us? Or maybe he truly doesn't know, I mean, we know in retrospect now that he obviously has some severe cognitive issues that he did. And then people who are in touch with, okay, we got a call. I'm going to take it. I like to take the calls. Hi, who's this?
Hey, this is Think.
Hey, Think.
How's it going?
Oh, this is good because you came up you came up on the auto screen as Stink. Okay.
As Think? Oh, really?
Yeah. It can't transcribe right. Sorry about that. How are you doing? I haven't talked to you for a while.
Pretty good. How about you? I've been trying to get. I've been doing good. I've been wanting to talk to you about some questions I have.
Yeah, please go ahead.
How are you doing though?
Oh, I'll tell you how I'm doing. And yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I was going
to know how you're doing.
I was going to say that if you've tried to call, if you're wondering what our schedule has gotten a little erratic because I'm no longer doing shows where I don't have a guest. I mean, we always do part two. We always take phone calls, but I'm not really committing to Monday through Thursday, 4 nights a week anymore. If we don't have a guest, I don't do a show. That's basically the way it's going. So that's the schedule's been too erratic, kind of erratic, and I'd like to apologize not just to you, but everybody for that, because I think that's pissing little people off. I know our viewership's down a little bit, but I'm trying to transition this show to a real interview program. So that's basically where we're at right now. So that's my apologies if you try to log down and we aren't there. So sorry about that.
Just to let you know, Jim, I think you hold down. I don't know if this is why you don't do a show, but I think you hold down the show really well just by yourself. A lot of the times, I actually don't like. No offense to your guests, but I'd rather have you just talk. I like your guests are. You had asked me one time how I felt about Neil Tyson deGrasse, and I had told you that he's just mainstream. I don't think he's like a real genius. I think he's just mainstream. He's just going off the narrative.
Yeah.
And I feel that your guests are very similar to that.
Oh, that's really interesting.
I think that they're just going off the. Yeah. Whereas you, I think you're so open-minded and you're open to so many possibilities that I think it's very interesting just to hear you talk by yourself. That's my opinion. I think you hold your own really well. Very well.
I gotta admit,
when you have a guest sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. When you were gonna say when I have a guest.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when you don't have a guest, I think you hold it down much better than sometimes when you do have a guest. I'm not saying that your guests are bad. I'm just saying that I find it much more interesting when you talk and you go off topic, because sometimes I think in a conversation we have to change the topic. It's like a song. If it's the same rhythm, it's boring, Yeah. And so they feather it with different beats and stuff. And I think when you talk, you feather the way you talk, your subject. And it makes it interesting. You know what I mean? Like you change to like UFOs and then back to like government and then health. And it's like you move around, and I think that's very interesting. As opposed to like when your guests are on, there's just one topic, you know, and it I don't know how to say it other than that. Kind of like beating the bush.
I really appreciate that because one of the reasons is because I was starting to wonder if I was very good at just doing solo. That was one of the reasons. That's very kind of you to say. I really appreciate it a lot. Thank you. I'm going to think about that.
I think you hold your own really well by yourself. Honestly, you hold your own very, very well just by yourself.
Thank you.
I used to listen to Coast by Coast, and I remember way back in the, Coast by Coast.
Oh, of course I do. Yeah, right.
George
Norrie, right.
Yeah, and I remember that there were times where he didn't have a guest, and he would just talk about like a bunch of random stuff, and I found that interesting, just like that, because of the intense knowledge he had of everything as a whole. And when he had a guest on, it seemed like he limited himself, to what the guest wanted to talk about. And so he couldn't go off topic a lot of times. And to be a good host, I think, a good host, I think he agreed with the guest more than he should have. That type of thing where he couldn't speak his opinion. That's my 2 cents.
I want to get back to, we were talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was on with Jimmy Fallon on Saturday night on Fox News. And, I was thinking that I'm watching this, I'm thinking the exact same thing you're talking about. This guy is far from a genius. He's just he's your typical white bread physicist. I mean, there's nothing really major going on there. I don't even know if he's that. I don't know how he broke into the media, but I don't even think he's that well spoken. I mean, he's not bad, but there's people can talk at least as well as him. He just ended up famous or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's a really good high school, like a genius high school level.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, he's a really good high school science teacher. That's exactly what he is. You're absolutely right.
That's right. And that's how I see it. Like he's like the top like high school. In high school, I think what makes a genius in high school is you remember a lot. You memorize things. And if you talk to a high school student that's like 4.5 grade point average, it's just them memorizing. But when you ask their opinion about things, they just go back to what they memorized.
Yeah.
Whereas in a college level, it's opinion. It's their opinion combined with what they know, and it's a next step up. So they already know the information. Now they're giving you their opinion on that information. In high school, you're taught 2 + 2 = 4, and then that's it. But in college level, you know what to do with 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah.
Now I have $2 or 2 apples. I can sell each for $2. I can make $4. They know how to use that information. And I don't think Tyson or Neil Tyson deGrasse is at that level. I think the only thing that he's well known for, and it's a constant argument, is this Pluto, right? He said there's no Pluto, and then there's Pluto.
Right. He might be part of that. You're right. He might be part of that. That's true. About the fact that Pluto was a planet and now it isn't. Yeah. I don't understand. Well, I guess I do understand, but it's just a matter of naming and labeling, isn't it? I don't know. It's still revolving around the sun. So, yeah. But you're right. I think
I'm not saying that he's not. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm not saying that he doesn't. He's not like he has a bunch of information in his head. Like I watch his show. I forgot what it's called, Walking with the Stars or something like that.
Yeah, something.
And he'll just say and he'll just say a bunch of random facts that are incredible. It's like I never even knew that type of stuff. But so what? He just has a bunch of random facts. There's no there's no basis. There's no functionality in what he's saying that we could use other than it's just fact. To me, when he talks, it's colorful. It's just like looking at a flower.
Right.
It's beautiful what he knows, but there's no function in it. But what can you do with that?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny you should bring that up about him too, because I'm in the process, and I can't really talk about this right now a lot. I'm doing some narration for a documentary. And one of the things that came up was the fact that I I'm starting to become, talking about the UFO stuff. I'm starting to become increasingly convinced that, people want proof that UFOs are real, and I'm starting to think, well, this is not really a scientific problem. Maybe how they run is or something like that, but the fact that they exist is not really a scientific problem. It's a social problem. So it's basically what you would call people on other planets. We'll just call them people, okay, right? They don't look like us and they don't live like us, but they're still, they're intelligent beings, right? But the fact that they exist is not really a scientific problem. I mean, it's like they're either there or they're not. It's like, does your aunt in Cleveland exist or not? So, it's basically yes or no. There's no real science involved there. And I'm kind of getting tired of scientists trying to come up with ways to prove or disprove life on other planets. It's like, well, it's either there or it isn't. It's a yes or no. Are you a gambling person? I've never asked you.
No, I'm not a gambling person, but I do have gambling tendency. But I'm not a gambler. I get addicted to things, but none of it is bad.
Oh, you want
I play pool. But I'm addicted to the pool game, not for gambling, just to play pool.
Right, right. I was going to say, did you want to talk about some of the things you're addicted to? Because that could be kind of fascinating,
How about you, Jim? Are you addicted to anything? That's something I want to know.
Oh, I'm going to just become straight clean with you now, and I'm 69 years old, so this is not an issue anymore. Okay. In my time, I would say I was addicted to sex. I would say that. It's like it was pretty bad. So yeah, that's it. I'm really lucky, I do not have to deal with, I mean, I don't know about your family background or whatever. A lot of families, even my wife's family, alcoholism is pretty rampant. I've never had any problem with that. I'm very thankful I haven't, because that destroys people's lives and stuff. I've never had any trouble, but I used to chase the female element, if you know what I mean, kind of hard, and it was not that, and to the point where that was not probably healthy for me. So, but I'm glad that passed. And now the equipment barely works. I'll tell you, and I'm surviving it. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Holy shit! Who would have known? Oh God! So that's my story.
I was listening to your show earlier, and you guys were talking. You had said something about somebody in their 70s online dating, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I actually was on Facebook for probably 20 years now, and within those 20 years on Facebook, I probably met like 10 women, like just randomly before they had Facebook dating.
Right.
They were people that were friends of my friends that just wanted to meet up with me. And so I met like 10 people on there. But I got to tell you, out of all the women that I've met on Facebook, this is going to sound really weird, but after there was a sexual experience between me and the person I met, they were gone. So I came up with this theory that I think women that are online dating, they have they're sexual addicts. That's what I think. They're just online to meet a guy, have sex, and then move on. That's what I believe.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm just really bad.
Well, I doubt that. But what I was talking about before is my friend now. This is current and recent, and he's like in his 70s. So he started dating. He's starting to date again in his 70s. His wife passed away, and what I was saying before is that to Tim is that his experience online is that these women just want to converse online. They don't actually want to meet in real life. And so it's kind of the opposite of what you're saying, but it's like, I think in some ways it's kind of the two sides of the same coin, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. The whole thing's weird.
Yeah. Now, dating in the 70s, because I've been meeting people on Facebook since my 30s.
Uh-huh.
And that's a different age group, I think, and there's a different mentality.
No shit.
As opposed to, I think there's a different mentality.
Yes, there is. It's right.
Yeah.
Because people. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Well, no. Go ahead. I forgot what I was going to say.
I was going to say people under the age of 40 are basically just interested in repopulating the human race. Pretty much. Is that pretty true? It's like, and it's not just men either.
Yeah, I would probably say that people under their 40s are definitely more sexually active.
Right.
But your friend that's in his 70s is. Why would you want to date in your 70s unless he's still sexually active, or is it a companionship thing?
No, it's no for him.
I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be 70, so I don't know.
For him, it's a companionship thing. It's companionship, yeah. I mean, he's already told me. He says, I mean, his equipment doesn't work that well anymore either, and he's even a little concerned about that. But it's mostly companionship. He also had a fantastic marriage too, and so it's like the lots of. I knew his wife. His wife was a very special person. I mean, he was very lucky in that regard, and yeah, so he misses her. So it's hard to. I don't know. It's like if you have different marriages. I've never even asked you. Are you married?
I was married. I have a daughter. I was married. I met my wife in Vietnam.
Oh,
and,
okay.
While I was on a trip. Yeah, while I was on a trip. And the trip turned to work, and eventually
you didn't meet her during the war then?
No, definitely. I'm not from that. Well, I was born probably when the war was over. Well, right about a year or two before the war was over. So yeah.
Well, that's a stereotype. Go ahead, please go ahead.
Yeah, my dad is a Navy SEAL, and that's how we came to America. Like I watch documentaries about my generation when they left on a boat. The people from Vietnam would take a boat. We'll buy a boat. I don't know where they got a boat. I should have talked to my dad. I just don't get along with him. But it's something about we were on a boat. He drove the boat to the middle of the ocean, somewhere in that Gulf of Tonkin area, whatever.
Yeah.
Next to Thailand, and then a whole bunch of Navy ships took us to Thailand, and then from there we came to the United States. That was there were sponsors that sponsored a whole bunch of us that were in Thailand.
Do you have any memory of this at all?
To the United States. Yeah, I have memories of people dying. Like this is a weird memory, but I remember being on the ocean or at the beach in Thailand, and there was a dead body that floated up on shore, and everyone gathered to see it. I remember, and I was told that's a normal thing. Like there were bodies every day, but I remember seeing that. That.
Oh, that. Yeah.
But I don't remember seeing the war, like the actual war in Vietnam. I don't remember that.
Right.
I don't remember any.
Well, forgive me for stereotyping, but when somebody says they met their wife in Vietnam, I just assume it was during the war. I shouldn't probably shouldn't do that. My apologies. But it's like.
Yeah.
That war.
I met my wife in 2000 something, so it's.
Oh yeah, it definitely wasn't during the war. No, absolutely. So, did you live over there at all?
Yeah, I ended up going there. I burnt. So, unlike Rosie Donald and all these people that are saying Trump is president and they're going to leave the country because of Trump, yeah. I actually was scared when Obama became president. I was following Alex Jones deeply, and I was following all these conspiracy theories. Everything that's happening right now, that we see right now, was what I was being told when Bush was president.
Yeah.
So when Obama, I remember watching this documentary called The Obama Deception by Alex Jones, and I was like, you know what, something's bad's going to happen. So I decided to leave America, and I did. I went over there first just to make sure that I could fit in as a tour, like a vacation. And then from there on, I was like, I like it here. I can fit in here. And then I got a job, and I ended up working there. And Facebook was formed at that time, and the company I worked for was doing applications for Facebook. They were integrating applications. This was before Facebook had Messenger, Instagram, all these weird things. It It was just straight up Facebook.
Yeah, right.
That's all. No ads, anything.
Right. I
It was just a
remember.
white page, no, yeah. And so I was working with a company that was developing applications for Facebook. And this was the first time I heard about this coding program or language called Ruby on Rails.
Yeah.
Do
Right.
you know anything about
Oh,
that
yeah, I
language?
do. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Very much. Yeah. Although I don't actually know,
Yeah,
I'm
it
a
was,
programmer in PHP, but I don't really know Ruby on Rails intimately. But since you brought this up, the original version of Twitter was written in Ruby on Rails because it's relatively simple, but it doesn't scale at all. So when the popularity of Twitter blew up, they literally they had to replace the code while the whole thing was actually running because it couldn't run. so it was like talking about fixing the airplane while it's in midair. It's like, holy, they actually did that. So I actually don't know what it's running on now, but it's not running on Ruby on Rails. I know that. So it's kind of interesting if you're a programmer.
yeah, yeah. I was there during that time, and eventually I ended up meeting my wife at that time, and everything was cool until I started to see how terrible Vietnam was. Vietnam, that's when I saw the reality of how lucky I was to be in the United States.
Yeah.
Extremely lucky. Yeah, the reality hit me of how dangerous it was to be in Vietnam. And that's when I came up, I started to realize that America is actually not a free country. Vietnam was a free country. But when I say that, what I mean is we were allowed to do more stuff in Vietnam than we were here in America. For example, to drive a car here in America, you have to have a driver's license. You have to have insurance for the car, registration, inspection for the car every year, and also registration every year.
Yeah.
And it's all every year you have to update, or every few years you have to update. Whereas in Vietnam, you didn't have that. You could drive a bike or a car without insurance over there. In fact, there were a bunch of people that would drive at that time without a driver's license. And in fact, being drunk was a normal thing. Drinking and driving was a normal thing.
Yeah.
I would see police officers drunk driving around.
Uh-huh.
So, and like, let's say one-way streets and stop signs. I always thought that they were suggestions in Vietnam. If you saw a stop sign or a one-way sign, it was more of a suggestion because people still went the opposite way. Even though it said one way, it was two-way traffic. So it was a lot more freedom, and it was extremely dangerous because of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to just say one thing, and then I'm going to end.
No. It's okay. Keep on going.
So I have a relative in Vietnam. She was driving her friend to the hospital, and on her way, she was on a motorbike, and the bus driver, the city bus driver, did some weird swerve. He was at fault from what she told me, and he hit her, and it flipped her bike, and it ended up breaking her ribs. And the person that she was taking to the hospital got in all kinds of broken bones and everything. And that person lived like another 4 or 5 months until that person died. The bike was completely totaled. And so when they took, I don't know if they went to court, but eventually the city bus driver and the city gave her $300. And that was to cover the damages of the bike.
Yeah.
Now imagine if it was that in America, if a city bus driver drove recklessly and hit somebody and killed them, or even injure them real badly, do you think it'll be $300? No, it'll be up in the multi-millions.
Correct. That's right. That's absolutely right. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I just want to point out,
like I said, when I heard that, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say when I think you're a little younger than me, but you're talking about like people driving drunk in Vietnam. When people have to realize that in the United States here before 1980, basically drunk driving was kosher. People were driving drunk all over the place, and unless you actually got in an accident, no one really gave a shit. It was like, and I look back on it now, it's like kind of nuts, but that was the way it was, So I don't know if you remember.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not kidding. It's like before 1980, You know that, and then I think that's around the time you got Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and that's kind of started the whole thing. But I had a very very interesting incident happen to me in 1978 where have a young lady in my car, and we're we are drinking literally while we're driving. I have a bottle of wine, and we're pouring wine, and we got stopped at a border crossing. This is between Canada and the United States, and I just said to the guy, the policeman, he says, "Do you have anything to declare?" And I said, "Well, I just want to point out we've been drinking this bottle of wine all the way from across the border." And he said, "Okay, that's fine. Go ahead." I just like,
Really?
yeah, I'm not
Like
kidding.
that?
Yeah, it was
Oh,
like it was like that, and that's the thing is that was. I mean, it was only mildly humorous then, but now I look back, it's like, oh my god, it's like that's nuts. Yeah, but that's the way.
It's insane, really.
Yeah,
Wow.
it really was. Yeah, that's the way it was, you know. But I mean, if you got in an accident, you're gonna a shitload of trouble. But no, if you're swerving over the road, it's like, oh, just go home. You know, it's like it was not that big a deal. It really wasn't. It was, and people forget that. You know, that's all kind of lost. That you thought in many ways Vietnam was more free than the United States, because I was going to ask you the time you were there, that was long after communism, right? I don't know when communism went away in Vietnam, but it didn't exist past 2000 for sure, correct?
Well, I don't think Vietnam was ever communist, from what I was told. I think Vietnam was always socialist.
Oh, okay.
And
All right.
socialism and Vietnam and communism are a little bit different.
Yes, they are.
Whereas in communism, true communism, everyone makes one equal amount of money, from
Right.
what I know. And the government basically tells the people what pay level they're supposed to be at.
That's correct.
But in a socialist society, there's no patent. There's a free market.
Right.
So in a socialist society, from what I know, you could, and I saw this all the time in Vietnam, you could buy real stuff and you could buy fake stuff. And I remember being at a bar, and when I asked for a Heineken, they would ask me, what brand Heineken do you want?
Yeah.
Do you want a Heineken from Thailand, from Germany, from China, or from America? What? I was like, what? And then that's when I found out, okay, well, the one from Thailand is fake. The one from China is fake. The only ones that were real was anything that said made in America was real.
Uh-huh.
And it was always more expensive. And
Yeah.
it was always safer, too. I might have told you before that they told me in Vietnam, if I were to buy sunglasses, don't buy any sunglasses from any country other than America, because you could go blind. And
Yeah.
I've never believed that. Like, how can you go blind by wearing sunglasses? But there's something about sunglasses that if it's not regulated properly and you wear it, you could actually damage your eyes.
Yeah.
So, and that's the safety of American FDA regulation. And like I said, that just added it to the realization of how lucky I was to be in America. And I was extremely lucky.
So did you
And
move?
that's when I eventually decided I would.
Did you move back here with your wife,
But-
or did you just mind if I ask?
No, I slowly started to see how my wife was really using me. Like her family was using me. When you're in love with somebody, you don't pay. At least for me, I didn't pay attention to the money.
Yeah.
I remember I put $100,000 or $70,000 in a joint bank account for my wife and I in
Yeah.
Vietnam. We were in the same, and it was luckily I was. I don't know why I did this, but subconsciously I told my wife that I want the bank account to have my name. But I don't know why I did that. If she had said no, it should be in our name together, I would have said yes. But she never said that.
Yeah.
And so she allowed me to have my name on it. So when I left the country, but when I broke up with her, she couldn't take that money, and they tried so hard to take that money. Her and the whole family tried to take that money that I had in that bank account.
Yeah.
And eventually, I couldn't do anything with it. Like I told you before, it was because Bitcoins when I eventually converted.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did.
Before that, yeah. But
So,
before that,
hold it. Thank you. So is that
lucky.
you use Bitcoin to get that money out of the country, right?
That's correct.
Right.
The country wouldn't let me take that money out of the country. Once you send money into, I don't know if it's still that way now. I'm almost positive it is. In fact, I'm going to guarantee it. Well, there's ways around it now that we have cryptos. But at that time, this was in 2009 or something like that, or 8 or 10. And at that time, there was no way. It was just once the money is in the bank in Vietnam, it stays there. You can't get it out.
Right.
And that's how it works.
And forgive me, Bitcoin started in 2006, right?
I don't know. Yeah, it might have got started in 2006 or something, but I don't think it was like used until like 2012 or something.
No, I think you're right about that. It was very, very, it was a very obscure thing at that time, but I think it actually started in 2006, I think, off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. Is that when it is? Yeah. Because in 2013 or 14 or something like that is when I was on Blog Talk Radio on this show, and then some guy was talking about Bitcoin, and to me, I love the concept right away. And the first thing I thought about was, can I actually do this? I can finally get my money out if I were to convert it into Bitcoin. And at this time, there were no exchanges.
Yeah, right.
To actually get Bitcoins was to meet up with somebody, and I think it was I forgot the name of the website, like Bitcoin or Bitcoin something, and then you would meet up with somebody. You would meet. It was like a Craigslist.
Yeah.
Where you would meet up with somebody, and then you do the transaction. I forgot the name of the website, but that's how I met those people in Vietnam that were miners over there, and I exchanged the money and the Bitcoins, and eventually I brought it back in.
So it was not
Coinbase.
It was not easy at that time to do this.
No, it was not. No, it was not easy. I had to meet up with a bunch of people, and I had to make a lot of calls. The whole process, I needed to fly back to Vietnam. So eventually, I was here in the United States. I just couldn't. I needed to get my money out, and so I invested like $10,000 to go back to Vietnam. That's a plane ticket and everything like that. And it took me like 2 months. I think like 2 months before I could get all the money packed up and converted and everything digitized. And then I came over here. Had to make a lot of connections. And Vietnam at the time was not, even now, it's not technically as advanced as the United States.
Yeah.
The United States had all these websites that were dedicated for Bitcoin, but Vietnam didn't. It was such a brand new thing. I remember a guy asked me, this was when Bitcoins was $300 or $700. The guy asked me, he's like, I have like 20 Bitcoins. Is it really going to go up? He asked me that. Is it really going to go up? And I told him, I don't know. I just want to take my money out.
Right.
As soon as you can give me the Bitcoins, I'm going to bring to the United States and turn it back to cash.
Right.
That's all. I'm not investing or anything. I'm just using this as get my money out of it. But when he asked me that, I remember that stuck in my mind. I said, what the hell? What if it does go up? Because when I was on the plane to Vietnam, it went from $500 to $700. So I was, wow, it does go up. But I might have told you before, I don't think investing in cryptocurrency as like a way to get rich. I don't think that's what it's for. I think it's for it's the new financial system. It's what's going to be used by banks and in the future. Because you see, Jim, everything is digital slowly, right?
Yeah.
There was, I don't know.
Think I got to
go into some
stuff. I got to tell you, I got to tell you about talking to you, and I've even told my friends offline on this. Talking to you has really you've kind of opened my mind to this. I mean, because I think I've told you before I started talking to you about this, I was really thinking this is all complete bullshit. And I don't think that anymore. You pretty much kind of told, talking to you made me realize what the hell's actually going on here. So and so I have to thank you for that. You converted me. That's basically the best way I can
Yeah.
put it. Because I don't, yeah, I think it's partly a generational thing, and partly so I don't, whatever. But I do have one more question about your little trip to Vietnam, though. Did you end up paying any of these people that you had to connect with to do this? Did any of them take a commission?
No,
Oh,
none of them took a commission.
oh, interesting.
Well, we went right off what Bitcoins was worth.
Uh
No
huh.
one took a commission. It's whatever it was worth is what I paid.
Yeah, because now forgive me,
That's
but if you
yeah,
deal with the major wallet companies right now, they take a small fee, right? Don't they?
that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every exchange takes a percentage, and if you're using Bitcoins, they're going to take a large percentage of it. It's
Uh
like
huh.
just the exchange in Bitcoins is a huge percentage. But I've said it before. I don't believe in Bitcoins. I use. I'm glad Bitcoins was there for me to change to get my money out of the country. But these days, I don't. It's been 20 years now, or 10 years now, and the technology for Bitcoins is outdated.
Yeah.
I believe in XRP. I believe because XRP is super cheap. I can exchange it on platforms. I'll exchange or I'll trade XRP in like tens of thousands transactions, tens of thousands of dollars, and I'm only charged like $1, $2. And
That-
every time I like move my money around or the XRP currency around, it's only like $1, $2, and I'm moving around 30, 40,000 each time, and that's super cheap. Whereas if I were to do this in Bitcoin, I'm pretty sure it'll be at least $50 or more
uh-huh.
per transaction. Yeah, so I don't believe in Bitcoin, but I'm glad it was there. I'm glad it was. Hey, Jim, let me tell you this before. I've been wanting to tell you this, right?
Okay.
And if somebody asks you, this might be a story you want to pass along.
All right.
All right, I might have told you this story. In Africa, a long time ago, and I think this was before e-gold. So before Bitcoins, right? There was something called e-gold. E-gold was this guy created this currency, the digital currency, and he called it e-gold. But eventually, the government arrested him and said that he was using it to money launder.
Uh-huh.
And for people to use it and buy drugs. But before e-gold, in Africa, they were using minutes on their phone. So here in America, people buy a phone plan, and in a phone plan at that time, you would buy maybe your phone plan would have like 600 minutes during the day and unlimited at nights, right?
Yeah.
That was way back. It's not like that anymore, but back. But in other countries, there was none of that. You would have to pay for your minutes.
Right.
So let's say 100 minutes would be 100 pennies, or $1, $10 for 100 minutes. So if you want 100 minutes, you would have to pay $10. Now everyone would have to pay the same fee in these in Africa for that price, and I think it was around the world. But what made them special in Africa was you can transfer your minutes from your phone to another phone. So let's say me and you were in Africa at that time, and I needed 20 minutes. You can actually punch in your phone 20 minutes to my phone automatically, and you can just give me your minutes like that. So one day, this is the story. In Africa they have wet markets, right?
Yeah.
Where there's
Right.
like people cutting up, wet markets. There's no credit card machines. There's no cash registers or anything. It's just straight money, right? Straight cash.
Right.
So they said that it happened like this. A guy went to a wet market and he didn't have cash on him, but he told the guy that was selling eggs or something like that, hey, how about I give you 20 minutes on my phone to your phone for 10 eggs? And that's when it first began, the whole digital currency. And so eventually that transfer became so big, the transaction became so big that they started calling it M-Pesa. So mobile money, M-Pesa. And they allowed, schools allowed families from the countryside to send minutes from their phone to the school. So, and that's how they would pay for their children to go to the school. These people in the villages would go to a cell phone provider, buy a whole bunch of minutes, and then call up the school and say, I'm going to send you these minutes for my son or daughter to go to school. Or they would say, this is for the car. I would send you this much minutes for that motorbike or something. And that was the original. That is the original digital money.
Now that you mention
I
this,
don't know. I just wanted to tell you.
no, I now that you mention this, I remember hearing this story when it was happening. I do remember that. It's like it was kind of, but yeah, I remember this too. That and if I'm right, finally the government stepped in. Right? They didn't want people transferring money like this, so they just. Am I right about that? They finally cut it off or something like that.
I heard. Yeah. I eventually heard that they stopped that too. They eventually stopped that as well. And that's what makes Bitcoin so incredible. There's no author to it, so they couldn't find anyone to stop it. You know what I mean? They can't stop it.
Well,
Bitcoins is the only two cryptocurrencies that are considered currencies and not a security is Bitcoins and XRP. Bitcoins, the only reason why Bitcoins is not considered a security and considered a currency is because there's no author or there's no a foundation or someone that they can blame it on, or point to it. Yeah,
it's completely decentralized. That's the only reason.
Whereas, that's right. Whereas XRP, they call it the banker's coin. The foundation behind XRP, they've been fighting the SEC and talking to the governments to build regulations, and they've been talking and doing all kinds of behind it, and eventually they got the court system to say that XRP is a currency.
Do you think
not a security? And it's the only one.
Do you think the Trump administration is going to? I mean, they're trying to make America the center of digital currency of the world. Do you think there's going to be any success to this, or is it all just talking, or what do you think?
They just recently had the cryptocurrency summit. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did.
It was just a few days ago.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened though. Do you?
Yeah, I saw the first, I think, 45 minutes of it, and then it was all behind closed doors. They wouldn't talk about it. They wouldn't let the media see it. I remember Trump saying, "Okay, media, get out," and it had to be done that way because I don't know if you follow cryptocurrencies, but every news can push the market up super high. So if there's a positive news, it'll push the price up super high. Just random news.
Yeah.
Or if it's bad news, it'll drop it right away. And so they didn't want that to happen, so they had to close it.
And isn't it stupid that people are so knee jerk about it? The people, investors. I mean, this is the way the market is kind of about everything now. It's like everything makes it go either way up or way down. It's like just because people are just like, I don't know, they're just freaking lemmings. It just surprises the crap out of me, but whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of question whether it is the people or if it's like some sort of insider trading, because for a movement like that, I think it's like whales doing it. Like whales are people, or like these corporations or someone with a huge amount of money moving a huge amount. And it might be manipulated, but at the same time, that manipulation that they do is probably their skepticism as well. And it's these individuals as well. I don't think individual people, I don't know how much money you have, but I'm not multi-millionaire, billionaire status. So if I were to trade a little bit, it won't affect the market.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried. I know that there are people out there with huge amounts of money, and they're moving the markets out of just random time. So, But to your original question, do I think that that Trump is going to make America the crypto capital? I don't think so. I think it's just going to happen automatically. I think that the world is going to be a crypto capital. A long time ago, this guy named something Ananopoulos, I forgot the names of these people, but he said that somebody asked him, how much do you think Bitcoin is going to be worth in the future? And he said he believes that one Bitcoin is going to be worth one Bitcoin. So there's no value to it. It's just going to be Bitcoin is going to be the currency of the future.
Oh
There's
yeah.
no you can't. Yeah, there's no. It's not going to be backed by the dollar or the gold system or anything like that. It's just going to be worth itself. That's what he said. I don't know. Do you think we'll ever move away from gold?
See, that's a really interesting question, and I was actually going to ask you that because I don't know if the government would want, well, especially Bitcoin. You know, the thing you were talking about, Bitcoin and what other currency are the only two that are truly decentralized.
Okay.
I don't think the government wants
Yep.
to give up control of the currency stream that much. I don't know if you know, because yeah, I mean, I do wonder sometimes if that's what Trump is alluding to about getting the entire American currency system onto digital. But I don't know if it ever be truly decentralized. I don't know if like you, I don't know if Bitcoin's the one that's going to happen for. I just don't. But yeah, I do find yeah, go ahead.
So I can tell you this. Trump did not allow the government to buy Bitcoin. So what Trump is asking the government to do is all the Bitcoins that was seized in like, I don't know if you know what Silk Road was.
Yeah, I do.
A website that, yeah.
Right.
All the Bitcoins that were seized from like illegal stuff, or the government seized all the Bitcoins. Trump wrote this bill where the government can't sell it. They must keep it. And that's all it is. So the government is not buying up Bitcoin. They're just keeping the Bitcoins that they have right now. Whereas before, the government was selling it off the market to make it. They were just selling Bitcoins on the market. Whereas now Trump is saying you can't. And so the main cryptocurrency that the U.S. government is currently naming is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is the United States cryptocurrency, is what it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. The crypto reserve currency.
Well, that I didn't know. Thank you.
That's
a good piece of information to have. I was not aware of that. So it's good. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that Trump is ever going to make Bitcoin the capital here in America. I think if anything, the world is going to decide what crypto it's going to use as the cryptocurrency, because so I don't know if you know recently, but the Bitcoin's price dropped, and I think Bitcoin's price has dropped here in the United States is because because Trump had said that Bitcoins would be the cryptocurrency of the United States. I think a lot of people know that there's no way that's going to work. And that's why people are like, Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's why the price dropped.
Interesting.
They automatically knew right away. Yeah, that's really my opinion on it. It's very weird how I thought of how I can explain that, but it's just I don't know how to explain. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. That's really fascinating. That's really fascinating because I don't know if there's that many people that are that wise. I mean, I would have a tendency to agree with that too. You too. I don't think that's going to happen per se, but I don't know if there's enough people who are smart enough to actually come to that conclusion and make the price drop. I don't really know either way. You know, that's so.
Yeah. It's not a technology that's going to work. I told you multiple times, Jim.
Right.
It's slow and it's expensive, and that's all that's all. And I don't know if you know that cryptocurrencies, you can't update them.
Yeah.
Right? Did you know this? You can't update them.
Yeah. No, I do know that.
Yeah. So every time you want to update a cryptocurrency, you have to write a whole new currency and then upload. And Ethereum did this multiple times because they needed it to be scalable. They wanted Ethereum to do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But the Ethereum that was out so what they had to do was change the name of Ethereum out in the exchanges to like ETC instead of ETH. So the Ethereum that was on the exchanges, they called it Ethereum Classic. So they changed the name from ETH to ETC for Ethereum Classic. And the new Ethereum, they put it on the exchange and then called that ETH for Ethereum. And supposedly the airdrop, whoever had the old Ethereum would get 1-to-1 a new one. So if you have one old Ethereum, you would get one new Ethereum. But either way, they just can't update it. They have to do a whole new cryptocurrency of software platform or whatever it's called.
Well,
and it's called the hard fork.
You and I have talked about this in the past too, about the fact that the blockchain is so damn. I mean, relatively speaking, they've barely gotten started with with Bitcoin, and yet the blockchain is so damn massive. I mean, Christ, what's it going to happen? If this thing blows up by 200 or 300%, what happens then? I mean, I don't, because the thing is, I'll just explain to the viewers. You have to. Every single transaction that's ever happened is recorded in the blockchain. So I know the companies that do this will do this for you, but at some point somebody has to download the whole blockchain to add to it. And I mean, what is it right now? Like 15 gigs or something like that? I don't really know. Do you know how big it is actually in terms of file size?
Oh, it's got to be more than gigs. It's got to be more than gigs. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the terabytes.
Yeah, that right. It wouldn't surprise me either. That's right. I don't even know. I'm just throwing that out. But you're right. It wouldn't surprise me at all either. So at some point, regardless of how fast computers get, this is totally unwieldy. I mean, this is not going to work. You're absolutely correct.
It's not. There's no way that the platform for Bitcoin, utilizing that blockchain how it is not. There's no way it's going to be.
It won't work. It won't scale.
If you want to make things scalable.
That's what you're trying to say.
Right. It won't scale.
It won't scale. Right. That's right.
Yeah.
So.
Now imagine this. So back to what I was saying earlier, like before I about what I was trying to explain. Now imagine the United States has, like, I don't know, 30,000 Bitcoins, and then they realize there's a problem with Bitcoin. Now the United States is stuck with 30,000 Bitcoins, which is what, like almost $1 trillion or something like that.
Yeah, right.
But imagine if that was the case and the United States is stuck with this. They cannot turn to Satoshi Nakamoto. They don't know who this guy is.
I know.
To do anything.
I know. It's quite a tricky pull. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it simply won't scale. I mean, and we've talked about this before, about the fact that you look at any pioneering technology, the first version of it almost always fails. I mean, you look at anything, television, you can go back to virtually any technology, in the first. Usually it's the second company or the second version of it that comes along that ends up being successful, because there's a flaw in the first version nobody ever finds, and that's what's going on here too. I mean, you were absolutely right. It simply won't scale. It's a 10, and this never occurred to me before. And putting on my old fogey hat, and I've talked to you about this before. Like, I had a hard time buying all this because of the tulip effect in Holland and 1600 and all that shit. There's a possibility, and you just alluded to this, that this could fail, not for any sort of reasons of psychological issues of investment, but literally just on technical shit. It could actually just technically fail. And then you're right. Then you got a whole bunch of people with Bitcoin that are useless or valueless. And I gotta admit, think, and this is why I like talking to you. That never occurred to me before. That didn't. So you're a smart guy.
Bitcoin doesn't have a foundation. Ethereum, I hate Ethereum too, but at least Ethereum has a foundation backing it up that could update it and do things to correct whatever it is.
Right.
And quantum computing is going to come. And from what I know, quantum computing might actually be possible to crack this whole the coding of the security for Bitcoins and this whole thing.
Right. It probably will.
The only way to attack the only way you would be able to attack a quantum computer that's breaking the system is to actually use a quantum computer to protect the system.
Correct.
So Bitcoins without somebody protecting it, it's not that there's no security behind it. There's no other person on the other end with a quantum computer doing something to protect it. Whereas Ethereum and all these other cryptos that are like XRP that has a huge foundation. And by the way, XRP is within the government too. So they're a corporation that's working with the government. So recently the crypto summit had this guy named Brad Garlinghouse, and he was there at the crypto summit during that whole meeting, and he gave his 2 cents. But yeah, I don't believe that there's I don't think it's going to be possible for Bitcoin. I don't think it's a possibility that Bitcoins will be used in the future. There's too many flaws in it, way too many flaws. And the biggest flaw would be that there's no foundation.
Yeah,
there's no author to it.
I tell you what, I'm going to change the subject a little bit here because you alluded to this. Okay. I'm going to go on a limb and make a prediction. I think that by 2040, we will have quantum computers on our desktop. I mean, right now they are completely unwieldy machines. You have to run them almost close to the absolute zero. They're huge. They're enormous. They're I mean, it's like the 1940s where computers took up giant rooms. That's what it's like now. But I think by 2040 or 2050 for sure, we'll have them on our desktop. That's what I think. They're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And people.
Yeah, that would be pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And also I often hear you say, like you're an old. I don't think you're an old fogey, but when you say stuff like that, I want to say this to a generation that's old, that's older than my generation, and that's I believe that older people make a lot of valid points about cryptocurrency, but the argument that I would have right now why the older generations don't accept it yet is because there's not enough roads yet. So
hold on. I'm sorry. What did you say? There's not enough what? What did you say?
Roads. So So when people were still riding horses, right? And then the car came out. People are like, no, what am I going to do with this car? A horse can go between trees. There wasn't that much roads yet.
Interesting.
The car can only drive certain areas, right?
Yeah,
whereas the horse can go between the trees and go in the woods. But when the roads started being built, right, then the car can actually show what it really can do. And it was faster than a horse. It was more stronger than a horse. It can carry more load than a horse. And it was almost more safer than a horse as well. But you needed the roads in place for the car to be functional, to be more functional. And that's what we don't see yet for cryptocurrency. We don't see those roads yet. It's probably better right now to use cash and credit cards than it is crypto. We just don't have those roads yet in place. But in the future, I think. Go ahead, Jim.
I'm going to say, that's a brilliant analogy. That's really that. I mean, it took me a second to understand what you're talking about, but that is a brilliant analogy. You're absolutely right. You're basically saying there's no infrastructure for it, basically. But the analogy of using roads and horse and buggy is seriously, you're a brilliant guy. It's like you opened my mind to this, and before I'm talking to you about it, I kind of always thought it was kind of bullshit, and I'm starting to get it now. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm an old fool.
I don't think it's bullshit anymore. Once the president has a crypto summit with people that are actually backing certain cryptocurrencies. If it was bullshit, I don't think the president would be doing stuff.
No,
like that.
And not only that, I mean,
maybe
Trump's strong suit is economics. I trust him on economics basically more than any other subject. He understands money way more than most people. So I think in this particular case, I think that's doubly valid because of who he is too. It's not just that he's a president. He graduated from Wharton and really understands money. So I have a tendency to agree with you. If he thinks there's something to it, that's also another feather in the cap too. So
yeah. From what I've seen, what Trump has been doing, I don't know if he believes in it yet, but he's actually he's got an open mind to it,
Right.
and that's very important. Just to have an open mind to it, and he wants to know about it, and that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's all we need right now is for a president. Whereas Biden, I shouldn't use Biden because Biden is just so damn. I heard you saying that he just doesn't know anything.
Oh, I was just
So Biden is a bad example.
just before you called, what I was talking about is that there's a story now that in the New York Post about the fact. I don't know. Do you know what the auto pen is? It's a machine that replicate your signature with a real pen. So it's not really It's not really printed, but you're not really doing the writing. So the machine does the writing. So they've always had, the president's always had use of an auto pen in the White House since they were invented, which I think the 1940s. But supposedly they're starting to find out now that an auto pen was used to sign almost everything Biden did. So now people are wondering, does that mean there's a possibility he literally didn't know what anything was going on? Nothing, that he was completely out of it. And some people are saying now, I mean, I think there's going to be an investigation on this in Congress, too many investigations, but still, that people say, well, that means if some of the stuff that he supposedly did might be illegal or invalid because he didn't actually do it, if that's not his signature on the executive order, well, then what the fuck's going on? It's like, so, yeah, that was what I was actually talking about when you called. It's a pretty fascinating thing. And I mean, everybody, I find it kind of interesting that the people who saw that debate I have friends that were absolutely shocked. But my thing is, if you were following the news, you knew that was par for the course. The guy was just a stumbling, bumbling idiot, So I don't know. It's crazy, but yeah, there's a possibility that some of the stuff that he actually authorized might end up being invalid because they'll be able to prove he actually didn't do it. So I don't know. It's interesting.
It's not just Biden too. I agree with you. I've seen videos where on YouTube where I'm almost positive Biden was taking a dump in his pants while he was on stage. Like for a moment he just paused and looked down. You could tell he is taking a shit in his pants.
Know.
He's losing it.
I know.
Yeah, and it's not just Biden. There's I forgot. I don't know. Is it Chuck Schumer? I don't know. It's just. I think he's a Republican, but he's a rhino. He wears glasses, and there's interviews, multiple interviews where they're asking this guy something, and he just pauses. He doesn't answer, and you could tell he's taking a poop in his pants. And he's just losing his memory.
Yeah,
and it's so many of these people.
Right?
There's so many of them.
They're so old.
Yeah,
I know. It's nuts. It's crazy. Like they're so freaking old. It's a damn old folks home. It's unbelievable. I don't know.
And I'm not saying that being old is a bad thing, because I look at the younger, like the Democratic Party seems to be younger, but it's a bunch of younger women. And I don't know why. Every time they have, like on TV, it's always some black woman complaining about Trump, like Trump is a white supremacist, Trump is this. And it seems like that's the Democratic Party now. It's women.
Yes.
And the majority of the women are minorities.
Yeah,
and they're idiots at the same time. They say stuff that doesn't make sense.
Think you're not the only person that's noticed this. At the risk of sounding enormously sexist, and we all do every time we bring this up, you're not the only person that's noticed this. Yeah. I mean, you're not. So and then you get to the thing of just philosophy. I mean, as a general rule, liberalism is kind of a feminine philosophy. I mean, it just is. So I mean, you got that, yeah, and you got that on top of just what you're talking about here, and yeah, it's like no, it does seem like the parties have kind of separated into men and women. It's really amazing. I agree with you, because I don't think it was that way 30 years ago. I don't think so. So is what's happening here is very interesting phenomena. Yeah, and think I have to tell you, I got to go because I'm going to be offline in 5 minutes. So. We have to end this, but
thanks for having me on.
Oh, I really appreciate you calling. Truly, you call anytime. I love talking to you. I really do, and I want to thank you. I'm really serious. You opened my mind to this whole crypto thing, so I want to thank you for that too. I kind of understand what's going on now, so thank you very much.
Thanks. All right. Thanks for having me on your show and letting me vet. See
Yeah,
you, Jim.
I
Bye-bye.
appreciate it. You're welcome. Call anytime. Okay, I'll talk to you. That's Think. And if I'm right, he's in upstate New York. New York. I don't think he mentioned that, but he's called before. Very, very, very insightful man. I'm not actually exaggerating here. He pretty much converted me to the whole crypto thing. He pretty much did. So I want to thank him for calling. I want to thank Tim Conaway. Nice talking to him. Yeah, we got to end this because we're offline here in about 5 minutes. So now tomorrow night we're starting this new 3-part series with Lee Richardson. She's the founder of the Brain Performance Center in Dallas. She's a neurotherapist and a psychologist. So we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to read this again. It's based on her upcoming book called Crisis Brains: Unlocking Brain Capital for Smarter Decisions. I will be studied up for tomorrow. I've had a lot of stuff going on here, so it's like, running this little show is taking up an enormous amount of time. So yeah, so we're gonna have on. She's coming on for Thursdays, 3 Thursdays in a row, starting tomorrow night. So we're looking forward to having her. There's great conversations. This woman's really, really, really both insightful and also charming. So you want to tune into this. And the first, let me give you the episode tomorrow is called The Brain Under Pressure. Why smart leaders make bad decisions. And God knows they do. And it's like terrible. It doesn't matter. You can be a really bright person and you still end up just screwing up like a dork. And I am like testament to living for that. It's like, I don't know if I'm that smart, but my God, I managed to screw up, especially with stuff I actually know about, so. And I wanted the same thing. It would be really nice if that hardly ever happened, but I don't know about you, but I can't seem to make it almost go away. I can't. So anyway, she's on tomorrow night. Don Zorro, intelligence operative and lover of women, coming on Monday. So we'll see you tomorrow night with Lee Richardson, and I want to thank Think, and I want to thank Tim Conaway. Always nice talking to him too. So you guys. Thanks for watching, everybody. Really appreciate it. You take care. We'll see you tomorrow night.